Okay, so Zok to Gemara. Well, yeah, so yesterday we finished off at the bottom, actually at the top of Tzadik Vav. We were discussing how many people were there, and we talked about um, how Sanhedrin lost his beard. Right, Sanhedrin survived, and he had a problem. How was he going to face all the kings whose children he gathered to come with him to fight, and now they're all dead? So Hashem told him, or Hashem put an agent who said that maybe you should get disguised by shaving your beard, and then he had to go grind. He had to grind the seeds of Tamorim in order to get these malachim who dress up like people to give them the scissors, and it was dark, so he had to light a fire, and he didn't burn his beard. So that's how the Gemara ended up. That if you have a goy that you singe him a little bit and he doesn't complain, then you can continue to cause him trouble and have fun at his expense. Okay, Zok the Gemara weiter. What happened was he felt like he was a big tzaddik because a great nace happened to him, right? 185,000 or maybe 2.6 billion people were massacred, and he was from the Sheres of Plata. He was from the very few. So he had these grandiose ideas that I must be like Noach. I must be special like Noach, who's also saved from amongst the huge population. But the behemoth that he was, is he would never think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did anything. He assumed that the wood of the teva was a god. So he ran to get the wood of the teva because he identified with it, because he was also saved from the massacre of many, similar to Noach. So Ozal Ashkach Dafa Mitevusa de Noach. He went and he found a board from the teva of Noach. Amar, he said, Hainu Ela Harabo the Shizbe LeNoach Mitufna. This is the God. This is the great God that saved Noach from the Mabul. He made the wood of the teva into an avodah zarah. Amar, he said, Gavra umatzlich. If I'm going to succeed and I won't get killed and I'll continue to be matzliach, you know what I'm going to do? Mekar v'lehu l'trein b'noi kamach. I'm going to sacrifice my two sons as a carbon to this piece of wood that he now just anointed as his getchke. Shamu b'noi, his sons heard, and they said, I don't think so. V'katlu, and they killed him. Hanu d'chsiv, v'yihiyu mishtachava beis nusruch, and Nasruch is avodah zarah, miloshen neser, the board. So he really made this getchke into an avodah zarah, this piece of wood, and he made a little chapel for it. And while he was serving this piece of wood, what happened was Dar Melech Visharatzer, right? We were talking about how he would name his kids a Sharutzel, Banov, he ko Becherev, they killed him. So that's how the demise of Sanhedrin came about. Then it says, now we're going a little bit to Avram Avinu. It says when Avram Avinu was fighting the Malachim, it says Vayichalak Aleim Laila Hu Vavodo. So we just had this story when Avram was fighting the Rabbim. We just had this story on Tzaddik Base when the Gemara says, just like when Klal Yisrael was overwhelmed by the huge army of Sanhedrin, Avram was overwhelmed by the huge army of those 5 Malachim who came after him, and the Mitzvah by Mechem is going to go, the same thing is going to happen. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Oystei Malach, Shenizdamen LaAvram Laila Shemoy. So when it says Vayichalach Alem Laila, we touch it means he went and attacked them at night. But the Gemara is darshaning who attacked these malachim. It was the malach called Laila Shemoy. Shenemar by Laila Amar Hoyregover. This is a pasuk in Eov, where Eov is cursing the night that he was conceived. The Gemara here is darshaning it that the malach of Laila is the malach in charge of Heroyon, pregnancy, and the Laila says that this person should be conceived. So this malach Laila was the malach that helped Avram destroy the armies that were opposing. That's what Rabbi Yitzchak says. That's what Rabbi Yochanan says. Now, it was known that Rabbi Yochanan was called Bar Nafka. Either he was the son of a carpenter, or of a blacksmith, or his father's name was Nafcha. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says, "She'asa imoy ma'isa. What they did with the army was a ma'isa laila. What is a ma'isa laila? What is the story of night? Shenemar, it says in Hashemayim nilchamu hakachavim mimisiloisom nilchamu Sisra. If you remember the famous story of Sisra, where Devarim Hanaviyah told Baruch ben Avinoam to go fight Sisra, Sisra came to attack, and there was a resounding defeat of Sisra's army. What in fact happened? The stars came down, and we know the stars have a very powerful fire. The stars are like bigger than the sun. We know the sun is one of the smallest stars. And what it did is it went to their armor. They had these armors of metal scales, like we learned earlier, and the heat literally made that armor into an oven and literally burnt and cooked the people of Sisra's army inside. So that's the Ma'isa Laila, where the stars come out and defeat the opposing enemy. And that's exactly what happened by Avram as well. It was the Ma'isa Laila, the stars came and burnt Avram's opponent to death. Omer Shlokish, Taba the Nafra midabar Nafra. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafra, I like his pshat better than the explanation of Rabbi Yochanan, who's bar Nafra, who learns that it's not Malach. I like better that the Kachavim came out and burnt him to death. But Adam, the pasuk says by Avram Avinu that when he heard that Lot was killed, he came out and attacked him and followed him until dawn. As Rashi Vayishma Avram ki nishba achi vayurkas chanifa yelidei beizai shmoina asar. He took his 18 members of his family, shloish shmeyos, also it was 318 people, by Yirdoif Adon. So Kibbutz Shabbat Oiset Tzadik Adon. When he got to Don, Tashas Koichai, Avram Avinu was weakened at Don. Why did he become weak at Don? Don is in northern Israel. Ra b'nei Bonav shasidim lavar avodah zarah b'Don. Because Avram saw Baruch HaKodesh that his children will be over avodah zarah. And the archcrow brings down from the Maral is that Rebbe Shalom puts places in the world. There are certain places where there's a shvachkeit for Yidden and there's a big ashbal of avodah zarah, and there are certain places that have other. So actually, places are infused with certain koiches. So Don was a city that wasn't a good place for strength for Jews. To the contrary, it was a place where Jews can get tripped up. Shenemar vayosam is echad bebeisel was echad nosan bedon. He put Solomon around in the Jewish country, and he put one in Beisel and one in Don. V'af oisoi Rasha loy niskaber, and even Nebuchadnezzar. Let me make sure that I have this right as far as the placement of the Getchkes. I just want to make sure that it's talking about Nebuchadnezzar and not one of the kings. Could be this was Yerovam who did this. I'm sorry, was Nebuchadnezzar? Okay, so it was Yerovam. It's Yerovam, right? But so everyone knows the story of Yerovam. That is, Rechavam was the heir to the throne when Shlomo Melech died. And Rechavam decided to rule with an iron fist against the advice of the senior advisors. And because of that, the Jews were not happy and gave Yerovam an opportunity to make a competing melucha. Now, when Yerovam made this competing melucha, he said, we have a problem because he still controls Yerushalayim. And all my Jews are going to go up to Yerushalayim on Sukkot, and they're going to have Hakel, and the real melech is going to be sitting in the Azor, and I won't be able to sit in the Azor. So it'll be obvious to everybody that I'm not a real melech. I have to find some way to divert Klal Yisrael away from going to Yerushalayim. So what he did is he set up avodah zarah in the north and the south to be machshel Klal Yisrael. And then so when Nebuchadnezzar came to overrun Eretz Yisrael, Lo Nisgaber didn't get his ultimate strength at Shegil Adon, because that was a place where it was bad for Eden, and there was the strength of avodah zarah. The army of Nebuchadnezzar was so vast, from Don you were able to hear the snorting of the horses. You should have respect for an old person, even though he no longer Talmid Chacham, because he forgot his learning, but in his youth he was a Talmid Chacham. You should have great respect for him. machmas oinsa. If he lost it because he became unwell, he lost his memory, not because he neglected the Chazar Torah. So such a person, you have to continue to be mechabit. V'hizaru b'vriden k'Rav Yehuda. They used to, the way they took, we chop up our chickens and we cut them in pieces. But in the olden days, what they used to do is with their oifais is they would just roast them whole. I guess they had smaller birds that they ate. They would roast them all. And what happens is if the veins that go up the neck, some of the main veins, are not cut, it's going to cook the blood into it. If you cut it in pieces, then you could salt it and get all the blood out. But if you're roasting them, you don't salt it. And if you leave the veins open, if you leave the veins intact, the main arteries intact, it's going to cook the blood inside it, and it won't be good. Rabban knows if you're roasting it, it doesn't matter. If you don't know, you got to cut those vriden. So you should worry about the vriden according to Rabbi Yehuda and cut them, even though you're roasting a bird whole. The zorb of bnei amei haaretz, and you should be careful with the bnei amei haaretz to mehen teitzei Torah. The bnei amei haaretz, they become talmid chachamim, and you have to respect them. And Rashi says, don't say since they came from Amaratim, they don't deserve respect. Even the Bnei Amaratim could be great leaders who broadcast Torah to Klal Yisrael. The great pair of Shmai V'Avtalya, you know who they came from? They're from the grandchildren of Sanhedrin. And Bnei Banav Shal Haman Lamdu Torah B'Bnei Brak Kidlakaman. V'Aval Gav Yom Rabbi Yehuda Hachi He Zaharu B'Bnei Am Haaretz. The whole mills of the Kaman, right? You make sure that you tell them. So we're going to see in a second what he said. Just like we're going to see momentarily. Even though Nebuchadnezzar didn't do much to be zoicha to this covet, nevertheless you have to have respect for them. You have to be careful. You have to tell the Bnei Amoritz, don't take all the credit for yourself. Look, I came from Sanhedrin, I came from home, and I'm no. They have to give respect to their Rishoyim grandparents, because their grandparents must have done something that they were such. That's one shot. The second shot that Rashi brings down is Pum Fakeret. It's Pum Fakeret. You tell them that your Schos HaTorah is only because of your hard work. And if you don't have it, Birusha. In other words, don't be a knacker and think, I have Choshev Yichus. You should know it doesn't come from your Yichus at all. It comes only from your hard work. So it's actually looking at the same set of rules with a different perspective. So you tell these kids that either you tell them that it's not only their learning, it's the schus of their parents, or pungvakert. You tell them it's only their learning and it's not the schus of their parents. Tzadik ata Hashem, ki arvei lecha. You're a tzaddik because I'm arguing with you. Ach mishpatim adaber oischo, and I'm asking you mishpatim to understand what you're doing. This is what the Navi asked Hashem, which is, I believe, Yirmei Navi asked Hashem. Madua derech Rishon tzalecha. Why is it that the Rishonim seem to be doing well? Shalev, they're sitting calmly and peacefully. Kol bog de bogat. Natatem, they planted. Gam shorashoi yelchu. Even their roots are being planted. Gam also pri. They even made payers. So he was asking Tzaddik, Russia v'Toivloi, what's going on? How is it that the Goyim seem to have such success? Maya Hadrulay. What did they answer? Yirmei min Hashemayim. He says, you know why? I don't understand. You ran, like you're racing. You ran with regular people like yourself, and you got exhausted. The is a susim. How are you going to run with horses? You don't stand a chance. In other words, this is way above your pay scale. When you're running on flat land, yeah, you could do okay. How are you going to do if you're running in a marsh where it's so much harder to run? So you can't understand this. I bet you I could run and outrun 3 parsois, which is a long place to run, in front of horses. I can beat horses and in a bad terrain. So what happened? There was one single human runner. He ran in front of him 3 miles, which is way less than 3 parsois. On dry land, and he got exhausted. On Malaysia, they tell him you're going to outrun horses on hard terrain. In front of a single person running, you got exhausted. If after 3 million you got exhausted, Gimel parasois alachas kama v'kama, on dry land you got exhausted. When you're running in marshes where it's so much harder to run, alachas kama v'kama. Af ata, so too you, Yirmiyah, that you're asking me such a question. It's pung v'keret. Uma b'schar arba psio sheshilamti la'oisei rasha. Sherotz achar kvoidi ata tamiyah. You're blown away by the great schar that Nebuchadnezzar received for walking those 4 steps. And the Gemara is soon going to tell us what the story was with these 4 steps. But you're blown away why Nebuchadnezzar had it so good. Could you imagine how blown away you're going to be? When I give this schar to Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, which will be so much greater, alachas kama v'kama, you're not going to understand the huge chush. You're going to be blown away. Hanu dechsev l'neviam nishbar libi bekirbi. The schar that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Nevi'im, which is to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, my heart is broken. I can't understand it. Rachvu kol atzmoisai. I was shooken up, and I was sobered up. Hayisi ish shikar chagibur avru yain, like someone who's coming off the effect of wine, who's sobering up, blown away from the great schar that's unimaginable to a human that the Avos HaKadoshis receive. You're talking about these 4 steps that Nebuchadnezzar took. Hani dalg psios mahi, what are they? The Chesed says in the Pasuk, V'ezahi sholach meroidach beladen ben beladen. Melech Babel. So what a weird name. The Gemara is going to analyze where this weird name came from. His name is Meroidach beladen ben beladen. Melech Babel Svarim. He sent a great gift to Chizkiah Melech. What happened was Chizkiah Melech was sick, and B'neis he got better, and after he got better, he was sent gifts from the Melech Beladen ben Beladen. Just because Chizkiah was not well, and then he became better, he was sent these gifts. Lidroish Hamoifes, the Apostle says, Lidroish Hamoifes Asher Hoya Ba'aretz, to address the Moifes that was in the land. So let's look at the whole Pasuk inside. V'chein b'mlitzei Sarei Bavel Hameshalchem Alav Lidroish, they were sending to Chizkiah Lidroish Hamoifes Asher Hoya Ba'aretz, the Moifes that was in his land. Azavai Lakim L'Nasoisei Ladas as Kol Bavavai. Hashem tested. So Zog to Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan, Oisa Yoim Shemeis Boy Achaz. The day that Achaz died, Achaz was a very big Rasha, and he was the father of Chizkiah Melech, who was a great tzaddik. So the day that Achaz died, Shtei Shoyos Haya. Hashem made the sun set very early, 10 hours earlier than it should have. So normally a day is 12 hours. 2 hours in the day that Achaz died, bam, it became night. Hashem didn't want to have such a big levaya, so he made it nighttime very quickly. And when Chizkiah was not well, and then he became better, the 10 hours were added, so there was a day, the day that Chizkiah got better, the day was 22 hours instead of 12 hours. And this was the nace that occurred all over the world. So all the kings of the world realized that some great nace happened through Chizkiah. Tzeil HaMailos could be referring to it's like a solar clock, but it also could be just referring to the concept I'm giving you back the light hours. Asher Yarda B'Mailos Achav, on the, either it means on the actual solar clock that Achaz had made. So you saw the time change, you literally saw the watch change, or it just means the rushing of sunset that happened in the days of Achaz was reversed when Chizkiah got better. The And now the sun went back 10 degrees. In other words, was set back 10 hours. So Amalei, all the kings wanted to know, because this happened all over the world. A great nace happened. Amalei my high. So the kings asked, what's going on over here? I believe Rashi's before the kings of the world asked, my high, what is going on over here? So could be I saw that in the article. So that the kings wanted to know, my high, what happened? Amalei said, I'll tell you what happened. So the word traveled around the world that a great nace, this great nace happened, that the day was extended because Chizkiah was sick and he got better. Now, there are those who make a connection. What does the sun staying up have to do with Chizkiah getting better? Because the sun, we know, has healing properties. So by having more daylight, there was more vitamin D available, and that could have contributed to Chizkiah getting better. Amar Ika Gavra Kihai. I don't understand. There's a person out there in the world, there's a king somewhere in the world, all the malachim of the world said, there's a king out there in the world who had such a nice happened to him. We surely got to send him gifts, and we got to connect with him. This is what they wrote. They wrote Shalom to the king Chizkiah, Shalom lakarti Yerushalayim, Shalom lalaka Rabbah. Now Hashem's greatness was mentioned the third, right? And it was Chizkiah's greatness that was mentioned first in this letter. So what happened was Nebuchadnezzar at the time where Merodach ben Baladan was king, Nebuchadnezzar was just a scribe. He was a cipher. Nebuchadnezzar Sifrei de Baladan Hava, Haishaita Lahava also. Now when this letter was sent out, he was away, whatever it is, and they had to have the cipher department write it without the main minister in charge of the letter there. So Nebuchadnezzar didn't have a chance to screen that letter when it went out. He asked him when he got back, what exactly did you write? What was the exact nusach? Like we just read. I don't understand you. You acknowledge that the Rebbeinu Shalom is a lakal rabbah, and then you put him in the back. That's not. If he's a lakal rabbah, shouldn't he be mentioned first? So therefore, Omar el hachi ksuva. This is what you should write. You have to revise the letter. Shalom lakarabba, then shalom lakarti Yerushalayim, and last shalom malka Chizkiah. I'm going to tell them, okay, that's what has to happen. We already sent it out. You're going to have to run after the mailman, pull back the original letter, and give him the new reworded letter they want. So karyana de igrisa ihu lihava parvanko. The person who delivers, who's bringing the letter, who's this letter, you should be the messenger. Where else did we have this? We just had it recently by Pinchas and Moshe, right? When Moshe didn't know what to do. When Zimri and Krosby, Pinchas says, didn't you teach us Kana and Boy? And Moshe said, Karyana de Girsa, Ihu you're right, you should be doing it. Rod Basrei. So Nebuchadnezzar ran after the mailman. After he took 4 steps, also Gavriel stopped him, because every step he was getting big stuff of schar, and that would be too dangerous. And the Omer Rabbi Yochanan, if Gavriel had not stopped him, it would have been devastating for Klal Yisrael if Nebuchadnezzar would have been able to rack up such a cheshbon of schusim. So they stopped him after 4 steps. What a weird name. My Baladan ben Baladan. Omri, I'll tell you what it was. Baladan Malkava. Baladan was a king. The Ishtini Ape Bahava Ki de Kalba. Hashem made it that his face had changed and he looked like a dog. So he couldn't be the king anymore. Because I guess a guy with a dog face, it's just not appropriate. So he had to retire, but he was still alive. So therefore, Rabbi Yosef Barei al Malchusa, his son took over. His son's name was plain Merodach. The father who looked like a dog was Baladan. The father's name was Merodach. But if he would say Merodach ben Baladan is the king, it's very demeaning because his father's still alive. If his father's not alive, so Merodach ben Baladan would be the way to call him. But since his father's alive, what he did was have a ksiv shmei u'shmei davua Baladan Malka. So he writes Merodach Baladan. He added his father's name to his name to still mention that his father's the real king. Merodach Baladan ben Baladan. How did the ksiv? You see from this is what the pasuk says, that ben yechaber of his son's mechaber his father, because even this Merodach Baladan, he was mechaber his father. The eved adonov, and the servant is mechaber his master. Ben Yechabera of Hoda Amran. We just said this story with Paladin. And where do you see an example of an Evet Adoinov? The 5th month, the 10th of the month. He Teisha Esrei Shana, the 19th year, Lamelech Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel, Bon Nebuzradan Rav Tabachim. Nebuzradan was an Eved to Nebuchadnezzar. He was known as the Rav Tabachim because he butchered hundreds of thousands of people, as we will see on other days. Omar Lefnei Melech Bavel b'Yerushalayim. He came to Nebuchadnezzar in Yerushalayim. By Yisrael ves Beis Hashem ves Beis HaMelech. When he burnt the house of Hashem, he was the one who burnt down the Beis Hamikdash and the Beis HaMelech. Zog the Gemara, turning on to Tzadik Vav with Beis, Umi Salach Nebuchadnezzar Yerushalayim. Was Nebuchadnezzar in Yerushalayim? V'haksiva Yalu Oisai El Melech Bavel Rivlosa. It says that he was in Rivla. So how is it that he was in sunny Yerushalayim? How is it that Nebuchadnezzar came to greet him in Yerushalayim? He wasn't even there. Yom Bavo Zu Antuchya. Antuchya, Rashi says, is not part of Eretz Yisrael. The article says Antuchya is somewhere in southern Turkey. Is that what he says in the English one too? I had the blue one last night. Southern Turkey, right? Rabbi Chisda, Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avudimai explains what's happening over here. We know that Nebuchadnezzar is not in Yerushalayim. So how did Nebuchadnezzar greet Nebuchadnezzar in Yerushalayim? Amar, what really happened was the Musduyuknei Hoysach Kukuloi Amar Kafta. Nebuchadnezzar was an Eved to Nebuchadnezzar, and he kept his picture in his chariot to constantly keep the fear of his master in front of his eyes. So that's what we're talking about. The Eved Adoinov, the Eved of his Radon, had so much respect for his Adon that he kept a picture of him in his chariot. V'chad Amar, Eimo Yisera, Hoysaloi Mimenu. He was so terrified of his master, Nebuchadnezzar, wherever he was, even when he was in Yerushalayim, he had to fear as if Nebuchadnezzar was standing right there. So this is an example of an Eved Adon. Amarava, Ton Tlas Meya Kudnaisa Narga the Parzalo, the Sholit the Parzalo, Shadil Nebuchadnezzar Nebuchadnezzar. What type of ammunition did Nebuchadnezzar bring with him to take down Yerushalayim? 300 barrels of steel bullets, but not some steel bullets that were such a strong, reinforced, hardened steel, they sholat b'parzla. They can break through steel armor. So that's the type of bullets he came with, bullets that can armor-piercing bullets. To break into Yerushalayim, that was walled and protected. And you know what? He tried blasting with these bullets one gate to Yerushalayim, and they all got destroyed. In other words, they were totally pulverized because they couldn't pierce the armor of the door of Yerushalayim. So he ran out of bullets. He ran out of ammo, except for one. Shenemar Pesichya Yachad V'Koshel V'Chelamois Yaloim. Now, Pashat Pshat is, let's look at the pasuk inside. Pashat Pshat is V'ata now Pituchel Yachad V'Kashel V'Chelamois Yaloim, meaning right now, this is B'Shas the Churban, all of the doors of Yerushalayim collapsed like one. They were able to be blown up like one. But we're dashing at Punkt Fakert, that all of the doors, not one of the doors was able to eat up all of his bullets. So Boile Meheder, he wanted to go home because he sees that he's not succeeding in breaching the walls of Yerushalayim, and especially since he was around when his boss's boss Sanhedrin got melted down. I don't want to continue this battle. It's not looking good, and I'm afraid I'm going to end up like Sanhedrin. I want to bail. Nafko Kalo, a Basco came out that spoke to the Buzradim. V'yomar Shavar bar Shavar. Now Rashi teaches Shavar bar Shavar as follows. He teaches. One second. Where do we have Rashi Shavar bar Shavar? Shavar bar Shavar is a Rashi. Doileg bar doileg. You're a impulsive guy. You jump right away. You jump to do something and you jump away, right? Kum v'chavesh u'shleim. You jumpy guy, come and attack Yerushalayim. Nuvuzraden cover. The Vasco was talking to Nuvuzraden. Loshna Acher, Loshna Chvinas Rashi, Shavar means medalig bar medalig. You're a jumper, meaning kafatsta pamachas im sancherev. You were able to get away. You jumped with sancherev to a fight, and you got away. Now you're jumping again. But whatever it is, it was addressing him as either an impulsive guy or a guy who jumps. And he was told, "Nuvuzraden shavar. Don't worry, you could jump here. The Mata Zimna, the Mikdash Necharev, the time has come for the Beis HaMikdash to be Charev. The Heichale Miklei Rachamon L'Tzlon, and the Heichal is going to get burnt. Hoshle Chad Narga. He had one bullet left, and this time he didn't even use the sharp end of the bullet to try to break the door. Ostimachio Bakupa. He used either the wooden handle or just the backside of the bullet to it wasn't really a bullet. It was a sharp bullet connected to a big wooden spear. So either he hit the door with the back of the wood, which is soft, or he took the bullet out of the spear and hit it with the back, the part of the metal that goes into the wood. But whatever it is, not with the blade. He didn't even use the full force because he used the soft part. And Asir Machya Bekupa Gish gave a little knock on the door, be'itpach, and then melted down the door. So he realized that now was the time. 5 minutes ago, when he used up all his ammo, wasn't the time yet. When the time came, it just melted away. Shenemar Yoideya Kamevi Lamaila Bisvach Eitz Kardumov. Kardumois, with the soft end of the axe. In other words, he used the soft end of the axe to bring the door down. Now, he came into Yerushalayim, and he literally cleared a path by killing everybody in his sight. Have a katel v'azul adamot alecha. He literally killed everything in his sight until he reached the Heichal. Adlik beinura. He lit the Heichal on fire. But a nace happened that gava Heichla. The Heichal flew up into the sky to escape the fire. But dorchu beimin shemayim. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu pushed the Heichal back down to burn. Shenemar gas derech Hashem. Gas is like stepping on grapes. To squeeze them, squeeze down, Lebesulos Bas Yehuda to the Heichal. As Rashi says, Gava Heichala. Let me go back to Rashi. Yoideya Kamevi Lemal Besvachetz Kadumois. Tefillah, it was a tefillah. Yoideya Lefanecha, you know, Rebbeinu Shalom, Ois the Svachetz Kadumois, that the wooden end of the axe, Teshiva Boyesh Yerushalayim, that broke Yerushalayim, Kilu Heviu Lemaila Bekisei HaKavod. It was, so we're down to Hashem. That axe that broke through the door was like someone actually piercing the kisei hakavod, and that's part of a tefillah Hashem. So get these going back, save us from these going. We did this terrible thing. The Heichal wanted to run up to the sky to escape. Hashem pushed the Heichal back down to burn. So when he saw, when he wasn't saw the power that he had, right away it got to his head. He was really getting full of himself. And Abbas came out to cut him down to size. And he told him, you did nothing. You didn't kill them. They were already dead. So you were just the last catalyst. But really, you didn't overcome a big, strong nation. They were dead. You killed an empty shell. The Heichal was already destroyed. You burnt already a destroyed Heichal. You ground a lot of flour. You didn't grind wheat into flour. You ground flour already, which is not really accomplishing much. Take a mill, v'tachni kemach, and grind flour. Gali tamosech, your hair is going to be uncovered by your temples. Chish v'shoivel, your payas are going to be uncovered. Meaning, when an eved is taken out, when the Eden were taken out as a vodim by the Churban, their head coverings were removed and their hair was exposed. And Gale Shuk, Avri Naharais. They had to, as they had to walk and cross rivers, they had to pull up their begodim because they were walking through rivers on their way to their captivity. It's explaining what was going on by the Churban. Chitin loy nemar. It doesn't say v'tichni chitin. It says v'tichni kemach ela kemach. So clearly, Hashem showed them Mizraim, you really didn't do anything at all. This happened because they were already dead because of my Xera. You just were there to make it look like you did it. But don't be so full of yourself. You're a nobody. Chaza Dame de Zechariah. It's a very famous story. He saw the blood of Zechariah, David Karosach. Ever since Zechariah was murdered, his blood was bubbling by the cave of Zechariah. It's in the valley over there at the bottom of Har, at the bottom of Har Hazesim. I was actually once right there. I took a tour with he's a guy from Hebron. Who's the famous guy from Hebron? He's a
Simcha Hachbaum.
Simcha Hachbaum. Thank you. So he took his mamish right down there. Mamish where Navuz Radin did this. Amalahu. He said, he asked the Eden, my high, what's going on? Is blood bubbling? What is this? Amalah, they told him they didn't want to tell him they killed their own Navi, so they give him a baba ma'aser. Amalah dam zvachamu. This is the blood of a karbonis, who the ishtabach that was spilled. Amalah, yeah, really? I want to see if that's true. Let's spill other karbonis and see if you could compare if that blood looks similar to this blood. Amalah, I see vansi. Let's try it out. Imadama, if they'll be the same. So Kashi, they shechted karbonis, and there was blood for the karbonis. He didn't look at all like this blood. So he says, it's not the blood of the karbonis. You're withholding information from me. Tell me what this is. Amalu Galilee. And if you don't, I'm going to scrape your skin off with steel combs. So they told him, Amalei, hi, Kohen v'novahi. This is a Kohen and a Novi. The Invi Lahuli Yisrael b'churban of Yerushalayim. He was saying in the Nevuah that if you don't do tshuva, Yerushalayim will become charav, and we didn't like what he had to say, so we did what liberals do. They squashed the speech of people who are saying things that they don't want to hear. V'gatlu, and we killed him. Amar lahu. So the Nevuah said, Zechariah is upset. I'll fix it. I'm here to the rescue. Amar lahu, anam fayasnei. I'll be mfayis Zechariah. What did he do? I see Rabbanim. He took all the Rabbanim of Yerushalayim. Kotaliluya. He killed them as a nakama on behalf of Zechariah. The blood was still bubbling. I see Dardaki de Rav. He took all the little cheder yingalach. Kotaliluya. And then v'loinach. And it still didn't help. I see Pirchei Kahuna. Kotaliluya. V'loinach. Adi kotan iluyin tishin v'arba riboy. 94 times 10,000. 940,000 people he slaughtered. The one thing he was called Nevuzradin Rav Hatabachim. He was a butcher. Right there, he slaughtered 940,000 Eden Rahman al-Islam. And the blood was still bubbling. So Nevuzradin Karav Lagabeh, he went to the cave of Zechariah. Amar Zechariah. I already killed all the best, the shmalt of the Eden, 940,000 people. Do you want me to kill every single Jew? Because I'm going to do it. Miyad noch. So right away the blood stopped. He was blown away by what just had happened. Here tshuva bedaite. And he started thinking of tshuva. And this is what he thought to himself. Omar mahem shaloi ibdu el nefesh achas. Kalal Yisrael, who killed Zechariah, one person. Kach, look at the Charoy Naf that it created. I killed 940,000 people. Hu Gavra, I killed not one Yid. I killed 940,000 Yid, and I am in big, big trouble. My Tavale. So Orak, he ran away, never to come back. And Shadar Protisa Levese, he sent a will to his family of how to distribute his assets, because he never planned on coming back. He was going to run away to become a Yid, the Skyer, and he became a Ger. So, as Shlomo Kalbach says, you could be sitting in shul and there's a Heilig davening under his talis. You never know. You never know what he was doing yesterday. I wish I could do a good Shlomo Kalbach impression, but I could only imagine he's saying over a story. If you're sitting in shul and there are a guy, he's davening and crying, and he's Erlich, and he said, you never know who this guy is. Naaman ger toishavai. Naaman was a ger toishav. Nebuzradon was so Naaman was someone who had tsaras that was healed, I think, by Elisha, right? And Nebuzradon ger tzedek, he was a pure ger tzedek. A ger toishav doesn't do all the mitzvahs; he just accepts upon himself not to do avodah zarah. Nebuzradon became an erlich, and mibnei banav shal Sisra lamdu Torah b'Yerushalayim, and mibnei banav shal Sanhedrin limdu Torah b'Rabim umaninu shmai v'avtalyot, and mibnei banav shal Haman lamdu Torah b'Bnei Brak. So the point is, like we said earlier, Reb Zeir said, you tell the children either don't pat yourself on the back, like you're so great, it's all your work. It comes from the schus of your grandparents. Or the other Pshat Rashi was, it's only your schus. Don't think you have yichus. Don't put the grandparents' name on the resumes. That's not someone to be proud of. There was some Eniglach of Nebuchadnezzar who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, who were getting attracted to Yiddishkeit. But Hashem was going to take them in, let them become gayer. And of course, this is all Misholim. The Malachim don't tell Hashem what to do. He doesn't have him in his Amaskanis, but it's just trying to show the Rachmanis that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to take in even the children of the great Rosh of Nebuchadnezzar. He said, Rebbeinu Shalom, Mishehichiv, Es Beischa, V'Saraf Esech Alecha, Tachnis, Tachas, Kanfi, Eshchina. Of Azoivite, we can't have any club of Nebuchadnezzar to join Klal Yisrael. Hani Dechsiv, Rafinu Es Bavel, V'Loi Nirfasa. I wanted to take him in, Dr. Rashi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mavakish L'Rafoisai. Hashem wanted to heal Bavel by taking him in Lahakish B'Bnei Bana of Tachas Kanfi, Eshchina, but V'Loi Nirfasa, we couldn't allow it that. Ula Omar, Zed Nebuchadnezzar, this pasuk is referring to Nebuchadnezzar. Elu Naharis Bavel. These are referring to the Naharis of Bavel that were very bitter. The Tigma, the Tanaisi the Bavloi. And Dr. Rashi, what does it mean? Shem Royim Lishtois. The rivers of Bavel had bitter water, and either Rashi has two pshatim Tanaisi of the Bavel, which are palm trees. Either their fruits are bitter because they're growing off the irrigation of the bitter waters of this river, or it means that they didn't produce any pears because they were nourished by the bitter river. So either the bitterness is referring to the pears that are bitter or to the water that's bitter, and therefore the trees don't produce pears.
How can this reference from Homer? How could that be? Because he's a mullah. The mullah, it goes against what the Torah says. What do we have to about a mullah?
So if he's a ben achar ben from a Molech, why isn't there a mitzvah of Timchas Echamelech?
Yeah.
So if you can identify him, maybe. But maybe if he becomes a ger, he's kekatan shenoyladam. But that's a good point. It's a good point. If there's a chiyuv to kill a Molech, I can't say. I didn't look anywhere other than the article. That's a good horror. And Bnei Banav means ben achar ben. It doesn't say from his daughters. Bnei Banav. So because of that, the ben achar ben. So how is it that we don't kill him? So that's it. They weren't not to take him as Gerim, but they slipped in under the.
So even a mullah change.
I guess so. I guess so. What does he say there?
Shemai without openly admitted that they were in room. There's no reason to hide their answers.
Once they became Gerim, they didn't have to hide it. Well, there comes from Cher. They were from a Molech. But I guess you're saying the same thing should apply to a Molech. Once we got in and you let us in, it's too late. Now you can't kill us anymore. Amar Ula, Amon Umoyov, Shivavi Bishi, the Yerushalayim. Amon and Umoyov were bad neighbors of Yerushalayim. What do you mean they're bad neighbors? Even the Shema'inu, the Navi, once they heard they're close by, so they know what's going on by their neighbors. Since they heard they were bad neighbors, but they were also cowards. Even the Navi, they heard the Naviim that come as Nabi Lechurban of Yerushalayim. So they already knew that Yerushalayim is vulnerable. So Sholchu Nebuchadnezzar, they sent to Nebuchadnezzar, Pukto, now it's time to come. Because they were trying to convince him to come wipe out their neighbors. They were cowards, they didn't try starting up. But they wanted Nebuchadnezzar and Bavel to come and destroy them. Amar Nebuchadnezzar said, Mistafina, I don't want to start up with the Jews. They've done many things. Look at Sanhedrin. My boss got wiped out. I was right there when it happened. Everyone got wiped out. I don't want to start up with them. They said to me, you have nothing to worry about. He ain't ha'ish b'veisai. Hashem's no longer there anymore. These words, halach b'derech merchel, the Gra takes out. They're relevant a little later. The einish Allah Kadosh Baruch Hu. They're referring to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem abandoned Klal Yisrael. Nemar Hashem ishmulcham. Shalach lehu b'krevahu v'asi. He might not be there, but he's close by. And when I start up with the Eden, Hashem's going to come back, and I don't want to mess with that. Shalach lehu. Hashem, don't worry about it. Halech b'derech merchel. Halach b'derech merchel. Hashem didn't just abandon Klal Yisrael, and he's close by. He's far away. That's why the Gra takes it out over there, because it belongs over here. Shalach lehu. So they sent him. So he sent So Nebuchadnezzar, I still don't want to come, even if Hashem is far away. Because Islu Tzadiki, there's Tzadikim amongst Klal Yisrael, the Boy Rachame, they're going to daven for Rachmanis, Umaislan, Hashem will come right back. So Shochalei said, you don't have to worry about that either. So Rara Kesav Lokach B'yodai. He took the bundle of money with him, meaning there's no Tzadikim left. Then Kesav al Tzadikim, Shnemar, Hashem said, this is Hashem was saying a marshal, how Klal Yisrael married, was married to Hashem. Hashem married Klal Yisrael. Hashem was Mekadesh Klal Yisrael, and now they're being Noyev Tachtov. So how did Hashem marry Klal Yisrael? What was the Kesef Kedushin? The Echrali, I was calling to my wife, the Chamisha Sekosef, meaning with 15, which is referring to the 15th day of Nisan, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu was Poidas from Beis Avodim from Mitzrayim, and the Chomer Soirim, the Lesach Soirim. Chomer Soirim is 30 saw, and Lesach is 15. 30 plus 15 is 45, and it's referring to the 45 Lamed Vav Tzadikim. It's referring to the 45 Lamed Vav Tzadikim. There's 45 Tzadikim. Lamed Vav means 36. But there's 45 Tzadikim, and the reason why they're split up into 30 and 15, because Rashi says sometimes 15 are found in Eretz Yisrael, and 30 are in Chutz La'aretz, and sometimes 30 are in Eretz Yisrael, and 15 are in Chutz La'aretz. So with those, Hashem was kind of Klal Yisrael. Shalach Lahu, so he said back, yes, Hashem took the tzaddikim with him, but Hadri Rashi B'tshuva, even the Rishoyim that are there can do tshuva, and they'll become tzaddikim. And then we're right back where I started from, Ubol Rachmei, Umaisulei, and they'll bring Hashem back to save them. So the Shochalei said, don't worry about it. Farkova, we know for a fact that there's already a time that was set aside by HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the Beis Hamikdash is going to be destroyed. Shnemer L'yoyim hakesa yavoy beisoy. In Kesa el Azman, Kesa means a designated time. Shnemer bakesa L'yoyim chagenu, Tikku b'chodesh shover bakesa L'yoyim is a designated time of when Rosh Hashanah is. Shalach Lu, so he said, I still can't come. Kasisro, it's the middle of the winter. V'loy matina the osim mitagol mimitra. My troops, I'm going to bring them through snow and rain. It's not a good time to come attack. Right? We know the Russians. How did the Russians win over the Germans? Because the Germans couldn't handle the Russian winters. And then when they tried moving east to attack Russia, they got stuck in the snow. They got messed up. That took out the German army when they were fighting Russia. So they sent back, no problem. Come around the bottoms of the mountains. If you go in the valleys near the mountains will protect you from the rain and from the snow. Shenamar Sholchu Kar Moishel Eretz Misela Midbara Al Hartzion El Harbas Sion. So let's look at the pasuk inside. Pasuk of the pasuk is Sholchu Bar Moishel Eretz Misela Midbara Al Harbas Sion. I think it's talking about the downfall of Bavel, if I remember correctly, that's what it's talking about. But we're darshaning fakir. They sent to Bar Moshe Loris, they sent to Nebuchadnezzar, who is the ruler of that region, Misela Madra, come along the rocks of the mountains that will protect you from the snow, Al Har Basion to Har Basion. So Zok to Gemara, Shalachlu, he says, if I come, Yasina, Leslie Duchta, the Yesivnebe. You know how many troops, you know what type of army I'm coming with? Where am I going to put? Where are they going to stay while we're staging for the battle? Sholchle, they told him no problem. Kvare shalahen mu'ulin mipaltir shalach. They have the most beautifully decorated graves in caves that are a very good shelter, and they're so beautiful they're even nicer than your palaces back above it. The Nebuchadnezzar's army came and they took all the bones. They were mamish Ashra Kadisha would have freaked out. They took all the bones of all the Kforim and they threw them in the garbage. His Atzmos Sorah, his Atzmos Akainim, his Atzmos Anavim, his Atzmos Yosy Yerushalayim Kavreim, his Shotchem L'Shem Zurech, they just threw him out of the field. U'Lechol Tzva Shemayim Asher Havim, Asher Avodim Asher Chachareim, and they moved in. Their main barracks were all the mountains of the Kforim of Klal Yisrael. Amar Reb Nachman Reb Yitzchak. So now that we're talking about Golus, we're now going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the Geula. May must I Kasimar. Amar Reb Nachman Reb Yitzchak. Mishmi Aloch, did you hear maybe Amos Osi Bar Nafli? When Bar Nafli is? It's coming. Amr Lei, Rabbi says, Man Bar Nafli. Who's Bar Nafli? What do you mean? I don't know who he is. Amr Mashiach. So Rabbi said back, Mashiach Bar Nafli, Karis. Why do you call Mashiach Bar Nafli? Amr Lei, yeah, we call him Bar Nafli. Dechsiv Bayoimahu. Turning on to Tzadik Zayin Aleph. Bayoimahu. Akum. Oh, it's very late. Alchemist Sukkos David Hanefeles, because it's Sukkos David Hanefeles, that's why we refer to Mashiach ben Hakli. What time is it? Okay, so we'll stop here. We'll be Mamshech tomorrow. I thought we could get some extra work. I just wanted to point out a very important thought that Rabbi Rauser spoke out. If you remember, it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to make Sanhedrin into Melchemes Gog uMagog, but Chizkiah didn't say Shira. So let's think of where we're having. We're already after the Mapol of Sanhedrin, right? It already collapsed. And at this point, Hashem wanted Sanhedrin to become Gog uMagog retroactively, but since he didn't say Shira, it didn't become. Which means Gog uMagog is a concept. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, let's make that Gog uMagog. Who adin, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our times will make the Holocaust into Gog uMagog. Now, we think Gog uMagog is some special war that's going to come. But you see clearly from the Gemara that the Rebbeinu Shalom could designate any major attack on Klal Yisrael as Gog uMagog even after it happens. So there's Zoma Hoffman that Gog uMagog happened already, and now we're going into Geula. And as we're going to see tomorrow, it describes how the setup for Mashiach is going to happen. And I don't know, but it's a little uncanny. It sounds very similar to what's happening right now in the world. Not to create any false hopes, but when we're learning tomorrow, you'll tell me what you think. But it's very uncanny about how it sets up a series of events that occur over 7 years before Mashiach comes. I don't know. It's not creepy. It's a little interesting that I feel there's a lot of similarities between what the Gemara describes tomorrow and what's going to happen. Hopefully, we won't have a chance to learn the Gemara before Mashiach comes, and he'll come right away today, even before we learn the Gemara. Okay, Gavalti.